Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. I decided I would do this podcast before going to bed in about an hour or so, because tomorrow I will be away for all or most of the day. I will be in Harlingen, most likely a town you've never heard of, but it's right here in the Rio Grande Valley, about an hour from here. I will be attending an all-day conference, so I will not be here to do podcasts, at least not that much. I may do one when I come back if I'm awake, but that's an open question. But I figured that I would at least get one in before going to bed. I have been thinking about that article that I referenced in the previous podcast, which referred to the protests, the youth in the protests against Zionism, and more particularly against Israel's terrorist campaign against Gaza. As Hitler Youth, it is difficult for me to even say that, so I'm sorry. And which referred to Muslims as savages. I wanted to add a few more words to what I said. When talking about savages, I would ask the author, and I will not mention his name again, to look into the mirror, to gaze into the looking glass, as it were, and then see what you can see. What do you see there? Do you see a loving, tolerant human being? Do you see someone who is open to diversity, which, by the way, is one of the foundational principles of the United States? I assume you knew that, or maybe not. If not, I am telling you now. Those young people have a perfect right to disagree with you without having you, presumably an adult, presumably, I don't know, you're not acting like one, but I'm guessing you are one, referring to these brave protesters, people who are willing to do something which is totally outside of the norms of American society, namely challenging Zionism, challenging Israel, something which many Jews have done since Zionism was first conceived. I will ask you this. Have you ever heard, for instance, of the Satmar Hasidim? If not, I would suggest that you buy a copy of Chaim Potok's book, The Chosen, or look up The Chosen on YouTube. There are 3 versions of it. View the best one, the one with the clearest resolution, and the one without the subtitles. You don't need the subtitles, I don't think. Get a hold of a copy of that movie on YouTube or read the book, either one. It's the same basic story. Robbie Benson plays the part of a member of the Satmar Hasidim, which is one of the many Hasidic dynasties in Brooklyn. And his father is a rabbi. It is a fictional movie, but it is based on actual events which happened in the late 1940s, going up until the time of the establishment of Israel, and then following the story a bit later into the relationship between Robbie Benson's character and another character who was a strong Zionist. And so you get a taste of the kinds of tension, but respect, which existed between them. There was not always respect, but in this movie, those two boys, later men, did respect each other. The book After the Chosen by Chaim Potok follows the story of these two men. The Satmar Hasidim are one of many Orthodox Jewish movements to oppose Zionism. It opposed Zionism both before the foundation of Israel and now. One of the main reasons for it is that the Satmars argue that only the Mashiach, the Messiah, can establish the Holy Land, the Promised Land. Only the Messiah can do that, not mere men and mere women. And so, from the beginning, Zionism was a secular movement. The founder of Zionism was actually an atheist. So there was never any element of religion connected with Zionism. And therefore, a lot of Hasidic and other Orthodox Jews oppose Zionism on religious principles based upon their understanding of the Tanakh and the Talmud. Again, that only the Messiah could establish a homeland for Jews, not mere mortals. Now, whether I agree with that, whether I don't agree with that is beside the point. My reason for mentioning that is to make it clear that there has always been tension in the American Jewish community regarding a promised land. And now we see all of these young Jews and Jewish organizations on college and university campuses coming out and opposing Israel's activities in Gaza. Now, the reason I suspect that they would give is different from the Satmars. I doubt they are concerned about a Messiah establishing a promised land. Instead, they are focused on the rights of Palestinians as an indigenous people of Palestine, people from whom the land was stolen, actually stolen by the United Nations. and by the United States, which cast the deciding vote in the UN Security Council, which established the nation of Israel. Since then, Israel has treated its land and the indigenous inhabitants of it, the Palestinians, with contempt and tremendous disrespect. Tremendous disrespect. And we see that continuing up until the present day. In my view, establishing an entity, a Zionist entity in Palestine, was a mistake from the beginning. But that's just my view. I don't know whether all of those protesters would agree with me, but at the very least, they are observing what any reasonable person would observe, namely that the Israelis have betrayed their trust in the land. They have abused the indigenous inhabitants of Palestine. Not content to merely steal the land of the Palestinians, they have exiled them and forced them to live in prison camps. And now they are trying to get those indigenous people of West Asia to migrate across to Africa, in Egypt, and move into a penal colony that is even now being constructed for them. It is not clear whether Hamas or the Gazans will consent to being relocated. In principle, I don't think that they should, but by the same token, watching people being slaughtered is not very pleasant either. And so I think, as someone who has long opposed the principle of the lesser of two evils, I wonder, should I reconsider? Is there a lesser of two evils in this case? I don't know. But that is not a decision for me to make. That is a decision for Hamas and the Gazans. I hope they choose wisely. I don't know what that choice should be, because I cannot predict the future. I mean, either way, whatever they decide could backfire. Effectively, those Gazans will be moving from one penal colony into another. And so, compassionate university and college students, not only in the US, but all over the world, have seen the way the Gazans are being treated. And you have the nerve to refer to the majority population among the Gazans, Muslims, as savages. So, the protesters, many of whom are Jewish, are Hitler Youth to you, and the Gazans, some of whom are also Jewish, in case you did not know that, are savages. Well, maybe only the Muslims are. I don't know if you can distinguish between the two. I don't know if you are aware that the Gazans are a multi-ethnic, multi-religious population, Muslims, Christians, and Jews all living together in Gaza. I don't know if you know that. So I feel impelled to speak to you as if you were a child, because to me, that is precisely what you are. And you merit being talked to in no other way based upon that horrendous article that you had the nerve to write and then submit it for publication into the Boston Herald. I am angry at you for writing it, and I am angry at the Boston Herald for publishing it. Both. And I hope that both of you will pay professional consequences. For you, I hope that nobody will ever publish a single thing that you ever write again. For the Boston Herald, I hope they go bankrupt. I hope they go bankrupt as a result of anger that I hope will erupt at the article which you wrote and published as an opinion piece in that newspaper. I do hope they go bankrupt. The publishers may not be responsible. I don't know. Whether the editorial staff consulted the publishers before publishing your opinion piece, I don't know. I doubt it, knowing a bit about how journalism works, having started out my academic career in journalism. So, if the publishers did not know that the article was to be published or had not seen it, fine. Let them start a new newspaper, a newspaper which is not contaminated by the filth associated with your article and indeed your name. That is the least I think that anyone with any degree of moral conscience should expect. I hope it happens. I doubt it will. Looking at the way in which this society works, how divisive we are as a country politically. So I can scream and yell and make unfriendly comments toward you, because to me, you are my enemy. You are my intellectual enemy, and I will always regard you as such. I will never read a single thing you ever write, if you ever write a single thing in the future. That is a pledge I make not only to you, but to the viewers of my podcast. It is shameful what you have written. And it is shameful that the Boston Herald decided to publish it. And if you have even an ounce of conscience, even a small amount of a moral compass, I hope that you can find it in yourself to apologize to those students who are acting on behalf of human rights. They are not Hitler Youth, as you referred to them. How dare you? How dare you call them that? How dare you call them that? But you did. And no matter what you do, you cannot take it back because it is printed in the Boston Herald, and there it will remain. There it will remain. There is no way to recall copies of that newspaper. There is no way to erase everyone's digital archive of your article, and I have one. And so the record of your malevolent behavior will be a part of the history of this time. And whatever you thought you might have been accomplishing by cursing these brave students for standing up for the rights of Gazans, whatever you thought might come of it, nothing will come of it, historically, in my view, except your own shame. But in the long run, you, my friend, will be forgotten. Your article will not matter. The deeds of those brave young people who dared to stand up to the norm and oppose the Israeli assault on Gaza, they will remain in history. Their historical record will continue. Yours will not, thankfully. People often think the worst kind of people who commit horrendous acts, that they will be long remembered. That is true sometimes. But more often, it is their victims who are remembered. The victims, not the perpetrators. And you are a perpetrator, and thus you will remain throughout the annals of time. For the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.